For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us from London. Great to have you, Michael. Pleasure to have you.
Morning. It's really about sterling this morning, basically getting to a historic all-time low of 1.03 against the dollar this morning in Asia. Also, a lot of currency weakness as well, spreading throughout the markets too. Basically, sterling's weakness is all about the mini budget, which I'll come on to in a moment. Japanese yen down, and also equities really not doing particularly well. Shares in Asia Pacific fell sharply as negative sentiment continues to weigh on the markets. The Nikkei, the Kospi, even the Australian S&P ASX down 200, down to as well. Hong Kong down to mainland China, Shanghai Composite fractionally lower. Generally speaking, there's a story going about this morning which I think is worth taking a little look at. Business likes to trumpet its ECG credentials. This is talking about, sustainability and greenness and so on. But a greenwashing, a lot of people are calling that greenwashing. There could be a bit of a reckoning on the horizon. Definitions of what ESG stands for, environmental, social, and governance, means they're often very, very varied and difficult to pin down. And this can create a lot of challenges when it comes to compliance. So a lot of companies, never mind the other things that are happening in the markets, will be looking at these kind of things too, and a lot of them will find they're found wanting when compliance comes to play on those. All these very vague things, but they're still part of companies right now. India is pushing itself forward, trying to turn the country into a chip powerhouse. It's got a twofold strategy about this. Bring in foreign companies and build on areas where India has advantage, like chip design. It needs really to woo the giants. The issue for many countries building their chip making prowess is that countries that dominate the industry are few and far between, Taiwan and South Korea. However, India has a number of strengths which could help it in a bid to become global chip making. First of all, its enormous population. It's the second largest populous economy in the world, and also it's got a lot of English speaking, which is important internationally, whatever one thinks about it. A lot of English speaking engineering talent and a relatively cheap labor force, so it might do quite well. US recap: stock futures fall. Investors looking at the S&P 500 testing its June lows this morning. The Dow down about 0.5%. Really, it's still a worry about the Fed. How much more is it going to tighten? All that kind of stuff. And given the relatively hawkish comments that we got last week, let's turn our attention to Italy in the EU. And Giorgia Meloni, right-wing bloc, wins in Italy. In politics there is going to engender the first of Italy's female prime ministers. She won a quarter of the vote. She only won 4% in 2018. A lot of people are very anxiously looking what this actually means now for Italy's relationship to the EU, and also in terms of Russia as well. And it's got to obviously cope with funding. It's got to deal with inflation, and given the fractious nature of the politics in Italy, probably a lot of fighting to come. So back to that main story this morning, which is all about sterling, and the Americans are talking about the United Kingdom going towards Reaganomics, getting a thumb down from the markets. Sterling slid as much as 4.7% against the dollar, and as I said, hitting this 1.03 low overnight. It was quite a huge, even though it's supposed to be a mini budget. It said a lot about where the Tories are actually hoping that will happen now. And he said, the Chancellor said on Sunday, there's a lot more to come despite the historic sell-off as well. I think the art here is really given that there are big tax cuts and all the rest of it, you would imagine the markets to like it. Well, they didn't, because the long-term credit worthiness of the UK is being called into question. I think that what a lot of analysts are doing is trying to look through the noise of all this. But again, it's very, very difficult, when the markets start to say something, to stand and say, hang on, this is just noise. Let's give it a few days and see actually what happens. And finally, oil bounced back a bit overnight. Wholesale gas prices, for example, after Nord Stream 1 shutdown, are actually back to where they were before that. So there's a lot of movement there. Again, analysts are worried about or wondering about the supply cuts and all the rest of it, and also maybe a global recession as well. That is the global view this morning.
All right, real quickly, Michael Wilson. It is chaos in the UK, and I don't know what Mr. Kwasi Kwarteng has done, but if there's anything, he has made the poor poorer and the rich richer, and the United Kingdom is now a tale of two countries. If you remember that famous book, Sibyl, A Tale of Two Nations, that's what it's become with this very, let me use the word, heinous tax cuts and giving bonuses to bankers and the likes. And the sterling has taken a beating as regards this. First 6 months down the line, all of this plan will cost well over 50-60 billion pounds sterling. The deficit will increase. Added to COVID debt of over 300 billion, this is over another 200 billion in the making of 300 billion worth of money just frittered away. That's like close to 600 billion in UK deficit. What is going on? What is going on? Where is this madness going to stop? Secondly, Labour was in Liverpool over the weekend talking about their own solution. And they said they will go green as regards energy. They too are talking about 200 to 300 billion pounds sterling. They said they want to put solar panels on about 22,000 football pitches. What is really happening in the UK? Where is leadership?
Well, you could ask leadership, unfortunately, yes. I mean, good question. What's actually happening is, again, I think what the government is trying to do is to make the UK a place where people actually want to invest, which encourages foreign investment and so on, hence the tax cuts, hence the reversal of the corporation tax increase and so on. And there will be a 1 penny cut in income tax at the lowest rate of income tax, which is actually much more expensive for the Treasury than cutting the top rate from 45 to 40%. Again, it's a waiting game, really. I mean, you may well ask, as far as Labour's plans are concerned, I would imagine they're very, very expensive indeed, and the payback on solar panels, given our sort of climate, is not that quick. I think they're searching round for something to say, and that they are. This was pretty evident from what their response to Kwasi Kwarteng's budget was, and in fact more to come in the House of Commons on Friday. They didn't actually have a great deal to say about that. I mean, there may be more about the Labour Party and its conference. I think too many people still feel, and that there are justifications for this, that the Labour Party is still held hostage by the large unions in the country, which is saying that they will bring the country to a standstill unless their workers get paid more. So there's a lot going on. But I think that if there is any hope from this so-called mini budget, which wasn't a mini budget, of course, is that they're trying to improve the way in which the UK is regarded from abroad. Now, again, the markets reacted probably as you would expect them to do. I feel as though, as a relatively seasoned market watcher, I think a lot of people are trying to say, do you know what, let's just hang on for a moment. We're not going to take any notice of the so-called volatility right now. It looks like the markets gave it an immediate thumb down. Well, they did because they could, like most markets do. I think they may well climb back from that. We shall just have to see. I can't answer your questions. I don't know. It's a long-term play. But the one thing is that Reaganomics, as it's being called, doesn't happen, within 6 months or a year. And they've only got 2 years really to sort this out.
All right, Michael, it's a waiting game, you said, and that's pretty obvious. But then talk to us about the greenwashing. Where are we headed? What should the world expects, as far as the global economy is concerned?
I think there's a lot of company. I mean, what greenwashing actually means is that companies actually say they are responding to various kind of targets, and they are and they aren't. But these targets are so vague. Given the ESG targets, I mean, I think the point is that a lot of stakeholders now, shareholders are looking at companies quite seriously and trying to bring compliance upon those companies. I think that's the story right now, and this will affect companies all the way around the world. Gradually, concerns of stakeholders and shareholders will be brought to the fore. I think that's where this is going.
All right, thank you so much, Michael, for your time. Now for business update across the African continent, Rotus, the big man wearing two-piece suit.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning. Steve, how are you doing today? Nice to meet you, sir. Good morning. Good morning. So we begin. Look, actually, sorry, I had to hop in on what's going on in the UK because, Nigeria's Monetary Policy Committee is meeting this week. I think Ghana is meeting this week as well. The UK is showing classic policy misalignments right now. It is just really, really incredible with where the monetary policy side is trying to rein in inflation, but the fiscal side is reducing taxes and going to be spurring even more spending. So it's something to look at. We beat up on a lot of African countries when it comes to policy misalignments between the fiscal and monetary side. But what we're seeing from the UK now is just incredible. And the pound is in danger of falling below parity with the dollar. Yeah, it's
all-time low.
All-time low. It is really, really incredible stuff with what we're seeing. Anyway, we'll kick off in Nigeria. The government has set up an oil and gas promotion council. And this council is supposed to be able to, according to the federal government, allow for foreign investors to seek information on the oil and gas sector and seek where they would like to play in. Don't forget, we already have an NEPC, Export Promotion Council, already in place. But I believe the federal government believes that this Oil and Gas Promotion Council will, according to them, build up on the gains that they've made with the Petroleum Industry Act and further bring in more foreign investors in the oil and gas sector. That remains to be seen with respect to whether that's going to work. Still on oil and gas, the NNPC revenue for August, which was about, 550 odd billion, about 551 of it went towards what's been called under recovery fuel subsidies. Again, there have still been no remittances over to the Federation account. This day newspaper actually looked at the number of the metrics, their monthly reports, and this continues to be a topic. I think it's on the front page of today's This Day newspaper as well. Mr. Feni will also go through that, I'm sure, with you. But we continue to talk about how we have dwindling revenues and how, so there it is on the, I think he calls it the byline in black at top above the This Day logo there. NNPCL spent 94% of August oil and gas revenues on petrol subsidies. So it is simply incredible with what you're seeing with the ASU strike and the revenue challenges going on there, and generally what's been going on with Nigeria with respect to not being able to defend the currency that, yet again, and I just don't know, maybe the voices are not loud enough. It's just, we continue to talk about this again and again and again. Opportunity cost of this money that's going towards subsidies, could it go elsewhere? Pick your cause that you want revenues in Nigeria to attend to. Yet again, so this is yet again another example of the fact that fuel subsidies are just, it's just taking up so much of the nation's revenues. The dollar, I had to bring this up again. It is, because we just talked about the pound, it is absolutely crushing global currencies across the world right now. The yen has touched new lows. The pound, as we talked about, the euro. Again, I bring this up because what does that mean for currencies here? The CD the CD was already getting beaten up in Ghana with all the issues that they are facing. They have another, again, Monetary Policy Committee meeting this week. The Naira has now fallen above the 700 Naira threshold. And the scary thing is that this actually could get worse. As far as for us here, the oil has actually fallen to $85 a barrel. I think that's the first time since January that it's actually touched those lows. So if you are in an emerging market that is depending on commodities to be able to replenish your reserves when you see the dollar spiking where it is, if you are an oil-dependent nation like in Nigeria, now oil is actually coming down, where oil theft wasn't even allowing you to take advantage of the of high prices initially. It just spells more trouble for currencies going forward. We move to pensions. On Friday, PENCOM, the National Pension Commission, announced that Nigerians can now use 25% of their retirement savings accounts as a down payment on a mortgage. So. Rufai, don't snicker now. It's a good thing. It's a good thing on the demand side, right? It's a good thing
against inflation, Abi.
Well, the thing is, for a lot of people who are not able to come up with the equity that they need to put down money for a home, this helps. Already, if you've been out of a job for about 3-4 months, you can use up to 15 to 25% or 20% of your retirement savings account to prop yourself up. But what this does on the demand side, it helps. Now, on the supply side, our mortgage industry lacks liquidity. Interest rates are too high. We do not have a supply of units as far as affordable homes are concerned. So even if somebody was able to put together 25% of their retirement savings account towards this, where would they live? You know, what impact would that down payment have on the financing the home? Mortgages, we don't have 30-40 year mortgages here in Nigeria. I think the most you can get is maybe 15, maybe 20 if you're lucky. How do you finance that? The banks are not really financing. So there's still a lot of issues on the supply side for the mortgage industry that needs to be addressed. But, you know, PENCOM and then even return on investment for PFAs are below inflation. We'll have an analyst on the Global Business Report later on to talk about this in depth. But, you know, it's good. And then Mr. Sirika, Minister of Aviation, he had to backtrack on an initial statement that was put out on Friday that the Sovereign Investment Authority is one of the owners of Nigeria Air. They put out a list saying Ethiopia Airways owns about, I think, 39%. And they said the Sovereign Investment Authority owns it, but then they turned it around on Saturday and said, no, sorry. The NSIA actually doesn't have any ownership in Nigeria Air. Look, he just seems to be really hell-bent on getting this airline off the ground. But for now, just to put out there, the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority has no ownership on that. Then finally, I don't know if either of you saw Brotherhood this weekend, but it's a new Nollywood film that just came out. Incredible production scale, exploding cars, bazookas, speedboats, really, really big stuff. I cannot spoil it. But if you watch Arise TV and you work for this organization, there's a surprise cameo in this film. I can't spoil it for you. And they didn't put it in the trailer. You have to watch the movie. Your jaw will drop. You're like, what? So yeah. So
probably
go.
Rotus.
No, it's not. I can't tell you who it is. But go watch the movie.
It's probably you.
It's someone there that's in this organization. Brotherhood. Yeah. With Files, the bad guy, Basket Mouth, and big ensemble cast that's in the film. So I think The Woman King is still going to be number 1 this weekend in Nigeria. But that's the new thing. Yeah. All right.
I'm happy it's doing very well. Secondly, number 1, Rotus. I mean, it just shows. That's what I was asking Michael Wilson. Where is the leadership? The UK has just surprised me in terms of how low leadership can be. And it's obvious. That's why Liz Truss and her bandwagon were probably saying they wanted to attack the Bank of England because they knew they were going to do this.
Right. And now they put him under pressure.
And then they put him, so he has to increase interest rates again.
Even more.
And it has to, because immediately on Friday, when they announced this, the Hula Baloo, make the rich richer and the poor poorer, so-called mini budget by Kwesi Kwarteng, the next thing, the markets went wild.
UK 10-year bonds are above 4% for the first time since 2010.
I can imagine.
When your yields are going up, means your price is going down. When your price is going down, people are selling your bonds.
So you forced the poor Andrew Bailey to backtrack. Secondly, I wanted to talk about 25%. It's supposed to be a good idea.
The mortgage.
The mortgage thing. It's supposed to be a good idea. Yeah. But what's the practicality? How much is even the money you get in the first place? I know somebody that worked for over 10 years. When he told me his total pension, over 15 years, it wasn't up to 5 million. Then they give you 25% of 5 million. I want to buy a house in Yanokbaja.
Yeah.
You can't get less than 5-10 million.
Yeah.
Even if it's government scheme home.
Right.
You can't get less than. So how many of those do you want to get? So the practicality is almost naught. You can't get anything out of it. And that's why you see the rubber doesn't meet the road. And what happens is the fact that inflation has creamed off everything.
Destroyed returns.
Inflation, this world record holder, eater in America, Kobayashi.
Yeah, the hot dog guy.
Yeah, hot dog guy. Okay. Inflation has eaten every gains of the economy. Like Kobayashi will eat. Oh my God. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. And when you look at what we are doing on under recovery, it shows the problem. And you know what even scares me even more? See what NNPC, see the numbers, 94%. And we want to prop up the dollar. We can't prop up the dollar. And the so-called the education we ought to invest on, that is giving us at least 25 billion in diaspora remittances, putting some dollar into the economy. We are not investing in that and all of that. And what is happening in the long run? Our currency is taking a beating. It's going up and down like a yo-yo on the parallel market.
It's really
tough. That's why when this bunch of politicians say they will unify the rate, we ask them, okay, what's the projection fall rates the naira to the dollar will take? How much is even projected to take? Because they don't even answer this question. Just like one of the candidates said recently, that you provide free health care, free health insurance. And I asked the question, I said, what's the insurance premium?
How will you even fund it?
No, at first.
How will you fund universal health care?
So how will you fund the insurance premium? What's even he said you provide free health care. He didn't tell us how much the insurance premium will cost. Yeah. So how will you even fund the premium in the first place?
It's really tough.
So these are the questions we have to ask. And how will we even ensure accountability? We all remember National Health Insurance Scheme. How corruption also ate it up like Mr. Kobayashi will eat hot dogs up and food up. That's always been the problem, and that's why it doesn't look as though we're practical and we're doing anything sensible. We want this country to work. It's a great country with a lot of potential, and let me tell you, to anywhere in the world, I will always bet on Nigeria. Nigeria is the best kept secret in the world. It's the best thing that can ever happen in the world. But the problem is we're lacking in leadership that can harness all these resources. Leadership that can point the people right and that can teach them to think of the possibilities of tomorrow. Once we get that right, I keep saying, Nigeria is a sleeping giant. If it wakes today, it will shake this world. I'm not giving up on this country and I will never.
Absolutely. Rotos, just a quick one on the Nigeria here.
Yeah.
$350 million, isn't it?
That's the projected.
Already? Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, will it ever fly?
Someone made the point that Ethiopian Airlines is majority owned by the Ethiopian government. So if they have a majority ownership, that means that airline is actually owned by the Ethiopian government. So whether or not, and by the way, the ownership that they've talked about,
majority, I think it's 49%.
49, but they haven't committed any money towards it. So right now it's just on paper that they are, and just with where aviation is right now, the spike in aviation fuel, the where you're going to get the planes from, the competition from other airlines. Is this the right time to be floating this airline? We'll see. I mean, it was really embarrassing to turn around and say you didn't know that an investor, this is the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, you put it in a statement saying they actually own it, and you had to backtrack 24 hours later. They kind of seeps of desperation to try to get this thing.
To Sarika, I'm like, I hope that he understands what Air Nigeria under Barrister Jimoh Ibrahim went through.
Right.
Because you need to study that.
What about Virgin with Richard Branson, Virgin Nigeria? What about Nigeria Airways? Absolutely. And what about all these other examples?
Anyway, there's a backstory to it that Richard Branson wasn't all that as what he claimed he is. But another thing I'll ask is, but Nigeria owns airlines already now. Through AMCON, they own ARIC. Exactly. Why don't you brand your ARIC, your Air Nigeria,
and make that your
and increase the fleet size and your national carrier? But Nigeria owns that because is it not our Nigerian money that used to pay for the AMCON that
AMCON right now has about 5 trillion naira in debts that in toxic assets that they're still worried about how that's going to be, what the future holds for that. So you might as well try to sweat the assets that you have and put them to work to get a return. But I don't know. Some of these things are so straightforward. You wonder sometimes what the push really is on that front. Yeah. But hey. That's why Nigeria is a very interesting case study for universities.
If we can fly, if we can run our refineries, if we can have 24-hour power, if ASU is on strike, in 8 years of a government that promised so much, what are we talking about?
Okay, I'm just getting some clarification. The 25% is for your long-term loan deposit ratio.
Okay.
It's not entirely going to buy the house. It's the money you are going to put down.
Yeah, it's still equity now. It's still equity that you need to put down.
But the question is, what are the parameters of even buying?
Look, how much, what is the interest rate?
35% of what?
Oh, exactly. And what is the interest rate on homes right now if you try to finance them? That is the main question. The supply, this is demand. This is you, me, our pensions. That's demand. So that is going to stimulate us. So you can say, okay, let me take some of this money and put it down. But the supply side, the cost of homes, look, our deficits, housing deficits, they've been banding about 17 million units now for Lord knows how long. I think now it's about 30 million units. So the housing deficit has not reduced. So what is the relationship? When your supply is low, when you have a limited supply of a particular item, what does that mean for the price? So again, it is the strain on the supply side. What cement costs are? What are the cement costs? Cement costs have jumped up 18-20% year on year. That is one of the key inputs for building a home. So developers in Nigeria do not want to stretch out financing for a home because they want to get their money back as quickly as possible. They are still importing a number of their materials coming into the country.
But the other argument is at least you are getting something to put down. As a long-term loan deposit ratio.
Fine.
So I think that's the other argument they're making. That okay, that's laudable in the first place. You are getting something at least.
Right.
So regards your mortgage to put down, rather than having just your cash being tied down like it used to be hitherto.
Well, look,
so that's one argument.
It's good. Again, on the demand side, it is good, and I've said that repeatedly. Again, but it is the supply. Where are you going? If you in Benue or in Zamfara or in Lagos or in Edo State, where will these individuals go to go and purchase this home? Wait, so they've approved it as of Friday. It's part of. They put it. I can't remember what act in the Pension Reform Act, but they announced it on Friday. It is. There are some qualifications. The banks that are going to, or rather, as far as your employment status and a number of other metrics have to be met. Thresholds have to be met for you to take effect. But it's as of Friday they've announced it, and a number of these PFAs are going to be keying into it. But again, on the demand side, good. Supply side is still what we have to look at.
All right. Thank you so much.